measure success, not promote success. The essence of No Child Left Behind is how to measure success. What Biden is talking about today, what I'm talking about today, is how to promote success. You will not find a parent, and I'm not being presumptuous, if you're a parent, there's not a single parent, teacher, or student who doesn't understand what we have to do to make education better in America. I mean, really, it's not complicated. You got to start earlier. You got to have better access to people who know their subject, and you got to be able to be in a position where if you make it, you can get to college and be able to afford to get there. And in a sense, and the smaller the class, the better the opportunity. That's not rocket science. Again, I use that phrase for the third time. It really isn't. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows those three truisms. Yet, No Child Left Behind, designed to go and deal with children who have been left behind from the moment they're born, was not funded, number one. So the part that you were that was designed to deal with that portion of the population that was being left behind was not funded. And the part that was to measure the accomplishment, and it makes sense to have standards. My wife, as I said, is a teacher. She hates the idea of No Child Left Behind. She said you teach to the test. But every teacher in their heart will admit to you there should be some way to measure progress. But the way they measure progress in No Child Left Behind is loaded. It's like loaded dice. I had an amendment with Shaka Fatah, a friend of mine, a congressman from Philadelphia, the Biden Fatah amendment, when No Child Left Behind was up. I said, okay, you want to judge kids based on whether they meet a standardized score at certain points in their elementary, secondary education. Okay, judge them based upon input as well as output. If you want to judge them, if you spend $1 per student in one school district and $9 per student in another school district, and you're going to hold them to the same standard, factor in what you're spending. It's not reasonable. It's a little like saying to you, in the state of Iowa, and I know there's not many farmers here, we're going to go out and I want you to till your soil. You're not going to have a combine. You're not going to have geopositioning. You're not going to have the fertilizer. You're not going to have the following. But the next door guy is going to have the same, is going to have all of that. And now we're going to judge the yield of your crop. That's what we did. That's what we did. So now, in No Child Left Behind, to compare it to what I'm proposing is understandable but totally inappropriate. I'm talking about specific initiatives, not to test the child, but to test us as to whether or not we're prepared to inform a child, to give a child an opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need some mechanism like No Child Left Behind to measure success. Because I'm one of these guys, from the time I got there, the reason why they called me an iconoclast when I first got there as a 29-year-old kid, and why some of my liberal friends, I scared them, because I do think it worries. I do worry about once in motion, it stays in motion, a program. We never go back and measure whether or not it succeeds or not. Teachers should be able to be judged. Administrators should be able to judge. Students should be able to be judged. But the mechanism in No Child Left Behind does not provide a yardstick by which to equitably do that. Concluding comment, I would prefer the Democrats not try to fix No Child Left Behind now until I'm president. I'm not being facetious. I mean that seriously. I think this should be negotiated with an education president. You're not going to be able to, the negotiation and compromise you'd have to make to get No Child Left Behind fixed in this administration, I think is way beyond our prospects. And so I just as soon see it tinkered with, not a wholesale redo of it, until I got an opportunity to be part of that wholesale redo from the White House.
Question, right here.
So,
How do you plan on getting more money for our schools with the war going on?
and in the war. I'm the only guy with a plan to end it. What's your name?
Tyler.
Tyler, tell me about yourself. You in school still?
Yes, I am.
Where are you? You're a student here. Well, Tyler, you just asked the question that everybody tries to avoid. I make this little comment. I say, you know, the Vietnam, Freudian slip, the war in Iraq is like a big boulder sitting in the middle of the road. Until we settle that, until we get it out of the way, we don't have any flexibility to deal with all these other issues we're talking about. Because it not only saps our economic well-being, it also saps our intellectual and emotional well-being. It is the thing that sucks everything out of, all the oxygen out of the air. So what I did, and I'm not going to bore you with it now, I came up with a plan, and I'm the only person to ever be able to cross the aisle and get 26 Republicans, the majority of the Republicans, to vote for it. It said, Mr. President, you in fact have a failed strategy in Iraq. You keep thinking you can set up this strong central government. You have 160,000 of our men and women there shedding their blood. We're spending, will be over $1 trillion before this is over on this war. And Mr. President, you have no prospects of success. And what I've been saying for some time now, and now finally the vast majority of the Congress and the Senate, the vast majority of the so-called smart guys and women in foreign policy now agree with me. And it is, I've been saying for some time, the only way you can deal with this thing over there for us to get out, and get out in a way that we don't leave chaos behind, so I've got to send you back in 5 years, because now there's a regional war, and you have Iran and Turkey at war. The only way to do that is give these people some breathing room. Let them have local control over their own areas, the Sunnis, the Shias, the Kurds. Let them make that decision. But do what they call a republic, a federal system. So it's kind of like, if I can say to you, and it's not a hackneyed analogy, it's kind of like what happened in our Revolutionary War. Most of the students here know, but a lot of adults forget. I'll bet if I ask you, what happened if you just did these talk show thing, game show thing? What happened immediately after we won the revolution? We had a what? And most people say, a constitution. We didn't have a constitution. We didn't have a president. We didn't have a president for 13 years. We had a thing called the Articles of Confederation. Because guess what? Nobody living in South Carolina wanted to hang around anybody from Boston. Well, I say it somewhat facetiously, but literally. Folks in Delaware said, whoa, 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 don't count me in on a deal where I got to be part of Virginia. And the folks in Virginia said, whoa, New York, I'm not so sure. Literally. So in order to keep us together, what do? We set up a thing called the Articles of Confederation. We had a weak central government with no president. We had a continental Congress, and each of the states had a lot of power with a defined boundary. We all agreed on certain basic things. Well, that's what has to happen in order for us to be able to get out of Iraq. Finally, for the first time, I'm going to say something totally self-serving. I'm the only candidate in either party been able to gain enough respect from the other side of the aisle with an idea to get them to vote for it. And folks, you're not going to end this war in a partisan way. It will not end. You need Republicans to join us. That's why I really believe, already, I can bring this country together. Because my whole professional life, that's what I've done. I've worked like the devil to the point where people on both sides of the aisle have said, this guy knows what he's talking about on this issue. And he's telling me the truth, and he's not being political. So I can join him. That's why I did the Violence Against Women Act. That's what I did the Sexual Crime Bill. That's what I did here. With a lot of help. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the end of this war in Iraq in a way that gives us some hope. Some hope. That I don't have to send you back 8 years from now because of an all-out regional war with oil at $130 a barrel. Yes, sir. I'm going to get you this.
Senator Biden, I heard you talk about teachers and sending kids to college and stuff. What about special needs? Students with special needs and those things?
They're absolutely included in the whole prospect, the whole thing. I am a strong supporter. The leading guy in America dealing with special needs, and you owe him a debt of gratitude, we owe him a debt of gratitude, Tom Harkins. Tom Harkins is the guy. He really has. I know he's home state, you expect me to say, but I really mean it. Tom Harkins has been the spark plug